Welcome to Season 3 of FBC Seminoles' The Table podcast. In this season, called To the Ends of the Earth, we are so excited to have special guests join us who are involved in missions all over the world as full-time missionaries, church planners, professors, and some from our own church community who are coming from or headed to mission opportunities coming up. We want to share stories together of God moving in hearts and lives all over the world and how we can better pray, give, or maybe go ourselves to partner with these mission opportunities. On today's episode, we will be talking with our Ethiopia mission team who just came off a 10-day trip to Africa. You will be hearing from Justin, Carolyn, and Kaylee Thompson, Miguel and Aurora Carnero, and hosted by Garrison Jones. This episode is part 2 of 3. Thank you for joining us at the table.
All right, well, welcome back. We're back with our Ethiopia crew this week. We're super excited to hear some more stories. So I just want to jump right in. We have the same crew we had last week. I've heard of you talk about Korah, so tell me more about that location and kind of what goes on there.
So Korah started out as an outcast community for those with leprosy over probably 90 years ago. Many people migrate from the countryside seeking medical attention or job opportunities. And in reality, most who end up in Korah have limited education, can't afford medical care, and end up begging on the streets and scavenging for trash to eat or resell. There's an estimated 150,000 people living in the district of Korah.
Wow.
Koshe is the actual trash dump, and many people live there for their entire lives. One of our translators named Tilahun grew up there, and he's become one of our great friends over the years. He grew up on the streets and in Koshe as a child and teen, and when he was in high school, he created the organization Simple Acts of Kindness, and they focus on empowering specifically young children and mothers to help create income generating for their homes. Because of Tilahun, we got the opportunity to deliver tarps to the people at Koshe. Hardly any foreigners or even the people in the city of Addis have ever gone there. Wow. It's a very dangerous thing. And many people in the city didn't know about Korah until about 7 years ago when there was a landslide, and it killed over 600 people. A lot of people lost their homes, and I actually met a 13-year-old boy. His name was Yabsala, and his baby brother died in the landslide. And this was definitely one of the hardest and most eye-opening things I've ever seen. And first, we started out at this concrete house that was somewhat nice for the other houses that were there, and there was a hole in the roof, like it was caving in, and so we gave them a tarp for that. And then we kind of walked on this little path, and we had to cross this, I guess, river. It was just water, rain, that goes through the trash. And I mean, it was basically black. And
Just polluted from the trash.
Yeah. And we know that kids swim in that. And so we crossed that river on a big rock and had to jump onto the actual dump. And we got up to the first house and we gave them tarps, and they were so sweet. God bless you, God bless you. They were so thankful. And then a little bit further up, we went to the second house, and we gave them tarps, and then they asked for boots and blankets. And that was really cool because we've never gotten to hear from them their needs.
Sure.
And that's a very simple thing, And so then we were up decently high, and Tilahun asked if we wanted to keep going because he planned on just letting us stop there because the elevation, it was a pretty hard, it was very steep. And if you weren't careful, you would sink.
So you're talking about keep going more into the dump.
Right,
into
further
the
up.
Yeah,
So picture a mountain. This looks like a mountain when you see it from far away. You don't even realize that it is a landfill. They don't bury trash like we do. It is just piled. You cannot see the top of it.
Wow.
It's hard to even fathom. And yeah, so it's just it rains all the time, so it's just the runoff from that. And then kind of describe what you're saying when you say house.
Basically, like, big sticks are kind of the, like, scaffolding, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
The frame.
And then tarps or blankets. And I mean, they are very, very little. And the first house we went to, there was probably like 7 people that lived in it. And then the second house, like 10 to 12 people lived in it. And they were the same size. And again, they are very small. And a lot of times they have dogs with them because they, like at night, they deal with hyenas and have to fight these hyenas because they're fighting for the trash.
Wow.
And so we went further up, and that's kind of when it started to hit me because, like, the whole time I was kind of just watching Tilahoon's feet because, you know, he lived there, like, he knows this place like at the back of his hand, and so he knew where to step where you're not going to sink.
Right.
And so I was kind of just paying attention to him, and we get closer to the top, and I look up, and I mean, it's hundreds of people sitting up there.
They live there.
Yes, that live there. And you could see this trash truck pulling up, and they were all sitting there waiting to get whatever they could from that truck.
And that day it was women and children. They kind of have a system. They've made it because there was getting to be like fighting and crazy stuff. So there's still obviously a lot of that, but men go one day, women and kids another day. I mean, it's crazy.
So when you talk about you're talking about food, right? Like
Yes.
nourishment.
Yes.
Like not chairs and stuff.
Oh, no, food.
Yeah.
Or anything glass or plastic that
Yeah.
they can recycle and
Recycled
sell.
and sell.
You know, they make the trucks from the airport. We noticed so many people with the airport socks on, the socks they give you on the plane. Anything that they can find like that, it may be small scraps of tarps or cardboard or whatever that they can use for their houses. So, I mean, it's anything, and it is an absolute free-for-all when those trucks come because it's the fresh stuff.
And we were talking about how, like, back to them reselling and stuff, a lot of the people that live on the streets, they beg. But the people at Koshe, like, they actually work, you know?
Yeah.
And they try to make some sort of living,
Sure.
you know? And by recycling whatever they can. And so we started to go back down, and that was very hard. It was very scary. Like I said, very steep, and some of the trash would, you know, just kind of slide out from under you. But then we went back to that concrete house that was at the bottom, and they started cooking, and that's when we started talking about God's provision a lot, because all of us were kind of like, how is this? Like, it's hard to see the good in this.
Sure.
You know?
Where is God in this?
Right.
Yeah.
And Tilahoon pointed out that these people are eating who knows what, swimming in this water, you know, all kinds of diseases, and they're okay.
They're getting sick.
You know, and that was a huge eye-opening thing.
Yeah.
And that they have, that they're getting food.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't look at it that way, but in that situation, they're getting food when there are other people starving.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said the one man's trash is another man's treasure, and I was like, I will
Oh, yeah.
never
Whole new way of
look
seeing
at that again.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
So
people's trash was their God's provision to them.
I don't want to ask the cliche, like, how did it make you feel, but like, what emotions when you go up this, like, what
So
do you feel? I mean,
surreal.
yeah.
It's very.
Something that I'm still kind of wrestling with is, man, it's on a mountain,
Yeah.
and it's right outside of Addis, And so you're up there in this landfill with the garbage, and you look out and it's just garbage for miles. But then you can also see the city.
The city.
Right? And so you see the cars, you see civilization, you see the high-rise buildings, and you see the trash all. And
Right
it's like
up
the
next to it.
Yeah.
like the duality of the human condition just in that moment was so surreal for me. Even now, like it gets weird when I think about it.
And just seeing those houses, houses
Yeah.
in the middle of it. You know, they do bring dozers out and push the trash, not cover it up, but push it flat up on top. And there's houses up there. And I asked Tillahoon, I said, do those ever get damaged? He goes, sometimes they get plowed right over. And it's like, that's their day-to-day life. Yet they see it as God's provision.
We've known Tillahoon for years, and we've partnered with him in his ministry. But for him to allow us into that aspect of his life, and like Kaylee said, no, not even like their people go up there. And so for him to allow us to go, and our whole team couldn't go. It was the 5 of us and then one more from our team. But it was just
Super vulnerable for him to do that.
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think it's cool that God allowed the 5 of us
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to be a part of that. We weren't going to let her go. We were just going to have adults go. But she had been asking, and I thought, you've been sick. I don't know if your stomach can handle it. I mean, that's just the reality of smells and things. And Saturday morning, she had just said, I really want to go. And one of our team members that was going to go ended up being sick. And so I said, ask Dad and see what he says. And I mean, it was definitely the most life-changing
Yeah, I
thing
had
that
it.
she went through.
And when she came and asked me, typically I'd be like,
I mean, no hesitation, yeah.
But even in that, we saw God's provision, and you're walking up literal trash. And so we, of course, went prepared with the little nose stuffers so that, you're not struggling with the smells and you don't want to react to them. None of us needed them. It wasn't ever this thing of like, I can't do this. We all just walked up there, and it was this incredible experience to have with them and with Tillahoon, and it was just
And I think one thing that was hard was that evening, we pretty much every time we go to a big Ethiopian restaurant where they do these dances, like a lot of the tribal dances and stuff. And it's kind of the, I guess, rich Ethiopians that go there, And it's a very nice, big restaurant. And so it was like 2 completely different. And all of us were kind of looking at each other, and they're like,
Tripped me
oh
out.
my
it
gosh.
was so weird.
Yeah.
Two extremes
all
in
in the
one
same
day.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was hard.
very
It
different.
was a very long Saturday.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Kaylee. That's.
Yeah.
I'm moved and I didn't see it, so I know
Yeah.
that seeing it
Oh,
and
yeah.
feeling it and experiencing it
Oh,
and
yeah.
smelling it and all that just had to be.
But then even coming back and them telling us we need rain boots and blankets, it's like, okay, we can do that. Like, how can we figure out a way to get them this?
Sure.
Another really cool ministry that Tillahoon has started is he has single moms come, and we were able to bless 60 of them with just basic necessities. We did oil, flour, soap, rice, and pasta. And so they came in, and it was a government-owned building, and so there was government there, but we were able to just, Carolyn got to do a devotional, I shared a devotional, and so to just be doing ministry in a government place and sharing that, the love of Christ to these moms and to their kids was also really cool.
That's so cool. Wow.
Also, big shout out to Tillahoon, because it's a government building, right? So like, there's all these other religions. You don't know what they believe, and so we would Aurora would talk, and she would say a small phrase, and then he would talk for like 20 minutes, like translating, and we're like, she didn't say all that, but he was making sure that like he wasn't gonna get in trouble with the government, still like presenting the gospel in a way that he wasn't gonna get kicked out of the building and not be able to provide that ministry anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with all of our translators are.
Oh, yeah.
We've had relationships
Christians
with them for a long time, and Christians, and we see that with all of them. We'll say something when we're presenting, and they're adding on to it in a way that those people will understand.
In a context of what
Yes.
they
Yeah.
understand.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible. They're not taking us word for word.
Sure.
because there's some things that don't translate well and they
Sure.
won't really understand it. So
That's
they,
cool.
yeah, it's incredible.
That's a huge blessing.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Lord.
At one point, he looked back at me and he said, "I'm adding more." And I just looked and I said, "I figured you're good." I'm like, I trust
noticed
you.
that. That's cool.
So also part of that was there were a few women that couldn't come to that food distribution, so we got to go do some home visits, split up into groups again, and myself and Miguel and Aurora got to go to one home that was a mom and two kids, and we had a translator with us, and so I just told her, hey, can you give an overview of what we shared at the food distribution, and same thing. She just started talking, and I heard the word Abraham and the word Sarah, and I said, "Oh, she's doing the thing," So that's great when they just kind of fill in the gaps for us and help. But that was really neat to get to just go into people's homes, hear their stories. We asked how we could specifically pray for her, and she talked to our translator, but then our translator said, "I'll tell you when we leave." And I said, "Okay." So we just visited with their kids. They spoke pretty decent English, and were able to pray with her before we left and take a picture with her just so we could remember them. And when we got in the van, she let us know that mom has AIDS and can't get any kind of medicine and is just worried, what's going to happen to her kids when she ultimately passes away, which she will at some point. And just story after story of just a lot of hard things. Same at that food distribution, we got to hear from a few people just share their stories, and life is hard, but they have a hope that's incredible. And they were just so grateful, so thankful, and just the little that we give them, they look at as God's provision.
That's cool. Wow.
So also that afternoon, it was a very long Saturday. We ended up getting to go to the Make Your Mark Girls Center.
Okay.
We originally thought we were going to get to do that the first couple of days. We've learned that Africa time and itineraries are very fluid and flexible, and luckily our whole team understands that, and we just go with the flow. And God
so just
always.
So that's from the last episode. That's the
Yes.
organization you guys talked about.
Yes.
With the bringing the boys off the streets and cool, awesome.
So a few years ago, I think 3 years ago, they started doing a sort of similar program with girls. This program is actually 12 months long instead of just the 6-ish that the boys
6
program
for
is.
boys.
It's a little bit different. So we thought we were going to get to do that in the beginning, and then that didn't happen. And we were supposed to actually go to a couple of orphanages that we didn't get to go to. So that allowed us to go to the girls' Chalcedon Center on Saturday afternoon, which I was really excited about because I had I had a desire to just talk to those girls and share with them. They accept up to 12 girls per year, and they can have a child, only one. So there were, by the time that we got there in the cycle, which was about 8 months in, there were only 6 girls left. There had been 7 up until recently, and 1 left her baby there. So there were 6 moms and 5 kids there when we went. I think the oldest was mid-20s.
Yeah.
There they'll take 15 through 25. And kind of same thing that they do at the Boys Center. They teach them life skills, trauma training, because so many of them have been raped or been through prostitution, just unimaginable things at a very young age. And many of them do end up pregnant, so they're raising kids.
Right.
And then they have Bible studies on a regular basis. And a couple of the girls had recently become Christians, and so that was super cool to get to talk to them. But we had some clothing for each of the girls and their kids, and we ended up kicking the guys out so that we could just have time with the girls. And so they hung out outside, and we were able to just sit in a circle and talk. Several of us got to share our stories. Then some of them shared theirs. And then our translators jumped in and shared their stories.
Wow.
One of them is a single mom, and then the other one is an unmarried young mom. So, and I was a single mom at one point. Just, you think you have nothing in common with people, but when you hear people's stories, you go, wow, we have a lot in common.
Right.
And the cool thing was that God was interwoven in all of that. He was the main part of all of our stories and how any of us have gotten through the things that we've gotten through. But that was just a really cool time. And they did a coffee ceremony for us, which is a traditional thing that Ethiopians do. They sit there and roast coffee beans over a little fire, then they grind them by hand, then they brew it. It's a long process.
That's cool.
And it's that way on purpose, so that you sit and you relax and you visit and you get to know people. And Chigger Yellum, that means no worries. That's their attitude.
Say it again?
Chigger Yellum.
Chigger, like a Hakuna Matata.
Yeah,
Chigger,
exactly. That's exactly what it is. And that's their attitude on anything.
Everything.
Whatever it is, Chigger Yellum. No problem. No worries. Don't worry about it. And so that was really cool, because that gave us a chance to talk to all of them, hear from them, play with their kids. And then before we left, we had them sit in a circle and we stood around them, laid hands on them, and prayed for them. Kind of like what we've been doing here. And that was, we got to do that at a lot of places. And I think that was one of our very favorite parts, because our two translators are speaking Amharic, and it's just super cool. So that was an unexpected blessing that we got that day to get to go and visit at the Chalcedon Center with the girls.
Cool.
One of the times that we got to sit around, I think it was at Cora, but we all sat around and prayed out loud, and everybody was praying. We kind of stepped back, and one of the workers said, "I wonder if that's what heaven sounds like." And it was so cool to just, it
Picture
really
of heaven.
was.
That's so cool. We're going to have one more episode with you guys, because I want to hear stories.
Or two.
Or two, that's fine.
We don't
But I want to go off script here and just ask, just for some reference for people, give me a glimpse of their culture in Ethiopia. What does it look like compared to the United States, West Texas, go to Ethiopia? What are some differences,
So just like
similarities?
Texas, the climate, the territory, all of that kind of stuff is very different. But where we go is the capital city, has millions of people, 7,
12.
8, 12. There's all different kind of estimates. I'm not sure
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
an accurate census.
Sure.
But like Miguel said, it's very high elevation.
Yeah.
It's pretty tropical. You're kind of on the equator. The high every day was about 70.
5.
So nice.
Yeah.
The high, 75.
Yeah.
So it was 65 to 75 the entire time we're there. Sorry, Texas.
Amazing.
But it's the rainy
Rain
season.
every day.
Rains every day,
Rains
not
every
West
day.
Texas rain.
Yeah,
Straight down,
Very
no rain.
peaceful.
And most people walk everywhere. They shop at little markets like what he talked about.
Yeah.
There are some bigger stores, but most people just kind of get what they need for that day or that meal. They don't eat meat a whole lot. That's kind of a special treat, and we'll talk about that in the next episode.
Cool.
They don't use utensils. They use injera to eat with. So injera is like a fermented, spongy.
It's like a sourdough
Bread.
tortilla.
Yeah,
Like a huge tortilla.
yeah, and it's they
Just
put it on a
scoop.
big platter.
Yeah.
And- no, well, they pinch it off and then they pinch
Yeah.
the
Gotcha.
food with it
Gotcha.
and eat that. And so that's we love it.
That's cool.
Their
There's
food
no
is
cops.
so
It's all
good.
one cop car. The rest of the police officers are on foot.
No traffic rules.
And so we saw a man get pulled over, like he was trying to cut us off, and the guy, he's on the street on the corner, and he like blew his little whistle and like pointed at him and like told him to pull over, and the guy did, and I was like, I would not
Pulls
have
out,
pulled
his,
over.
pulls out his ticket book with the
And writes it
carbon
down.
paper.
You try to catch me, buddy.
Yeah.
They do drive on the right side of the road,
That's good.
Yeah.
which was
That helps.
But
It
no
helps.
rules
No rules.
whatsoever.
No
Like
rules.
you're just, and that's another way that God provides, because we
Sure.
trust our drivers so much.
I mean,
and
they're
we know-
amazing.
and they've
Yeah,
been the
they
same
are.
drivers we've had for years.
Years,
And so
yeah.
it's
And so now
incredible.
there's a relationship there, and we
That's
see
cool.
them, and we're excited to see them,
That's cool.
and
So let me ask you this: for the geographically challenged, what countries border Ethiopia? Where exactly is? I know we've talked a little bit, but where exactly is Ethiopia?
Very east,
side of Africa.
Okay.
right at the little
South
point.
of Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of on the coast, ish.
It's,
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
it's right there.
I can't remember if Egypt kind of wraps around it.
It's
We'll
south
find
of
that out.
Egypt.
That's fine. That's good. I mean, you can
Lakeside.
Google it. I'm just curious.
we
if,
are the
just so we can.
challenge that you
It
were
is-
talking about.
Right.
But something interesting I learned,
Yeah.
and I don't know why this is, but I asked one of our translators, like, you're a country away from Egypt.
You get-
You guys ever go to like the pyramids and stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can, but you never drive through the border. Like if you want to leave Ethiopia, you always gotta fly
Fly.
out.
Yeah.
Wow.
you can't just cross the border. I thought that was super
It
interesting.
is.
But that's what I like. So South Sudan and Sudan border the west side,
Okay.
and Somalia borders the east side.
So it's
It's in the middle of.
it's fairly dangerous country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of things going on. A lot of conflict with that. A lot of
Yeah.
conflict in that area.
In Ethiopia, they've had you've got the different tribes: Oromo, Tigray, Amhara, and a lot of what's going on in that country at the time depends on what political leaders,
Sure.
what prime ministers in place.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So there are some struggles. Like right now, I think it's an Oromo in power. The Amhara are being very discriminated against, and so there is that going on. But in the city, it's usually very safe. But you go outside the city in the countryside, there is some rebel fighting.
So we don't ever leave the city
Yeah.
with 17 Ferengis is what they call foreigners. We would stick out like a sore thumb.
Sure.
And we want to be wise, even though there's some cool stuff we would love to see. That's not something that we've ever done. Our friends that adopted have gone back when it was just their family to see some family. But we just stay
Sure.
in the city where it's safe.
So they did do that 2 years ago. They went back, saw some family, and came back. They got pulled over 8 times. Yeah, and they had to pay every time.
Yeah.
Right,
So
to
there's
get
some
off.
danger going
Sure.
outside. But
Sure. There's definitely some wisdom on mission trips that we have to,
Absolutely.
we trust God, but we also have wisdom.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's close this episode with this. And again, I want to give a plug to last episode. If you haven't heard last episode, go listen to it because it's incredible. But we talked about the flight. So how long is the flight? So what is your total, like, from Dallas to Ethiopia, what's the total travel time?
Well, you got to drive to Dallas too.
Driving down
Yeah.
from
Right.
from West Texas, sure, yes. So what is the total
So-
travel time?
So 6 hours to Dallas. It's
And then-
12 hours to Turkey. It's 5 hours to Ethiopia.
6.
6
6
hours.
hours to Ethiopia.
But then
So,
it
yeah,
was weird because
28.
we were going,
You
back.
going? No, you going front.
but then when we
They're
came
8
back, we
hours
went
ahead.
back.
Yeah.
Yes.
So time zone difference is how many
8
hours?
hours.
8 hours.
ahead
Okay.
of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So you basically, it's over a day when you include the time zone
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
going.
Yes.
Coming
Yeah.
home, probably half a day
Yeah.
because you get some hours back. But
Yeah.
wow.
We did all spend the night in Dallas because our flight was supposed to get in at 7, and we were going, okay, I bet we're going to be tired.
Yeah.
Well, it was
8:30
every
or
bit
9.
of that before we got there.
my
When we
gosh.
walked out of the airport, it was probably 10
Yeah.
p.m.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
jet lag
And 100
Jet lag's a
degrees.
real thing. You're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
for
I'm
sure.
still feeling it a little.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
me.
understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
definitely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hey, come back. One more episode. I want you to keep hearing stories. This is really good. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to FBC Seminoles, The Table Podcast. A new episode will be released each Monday. We invite you to pull up a chair and join our table each week as we dig into God's Word together. We would love for you to join one of our Connect groups that meets throughout the week and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 or 10:30. If you'd like more information, you can call our church office at 432-758-3291 or visit our website at fbcseminole.org.